Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Real Life Podcast. We're so happy you guys are here. If you're watching on YouTube, you might notice that Dale is not in the studio, and if you're listening, you know he usually does these awesome intros, so I'm going to try not to botch it, but if this is your first time listening, you have come to the place where we can have conversations about all the hard topics, all the taboo things, anything that you have been scared to ask in your journey with following Jesus. So this is the place where people send in their questions, and we answer them with biblically based answers as best we can, and we talk about world events and how the Bible is still relevant. So if you're watching, you notice I have two guests, awesome guests today that have graciously stepped in while Dale is on vacation. And we're going to be answering a few of your guys' questions. So we have Kaylin, who is on staff here at Foothills, and she does lots of things. Foothills Ladies, connection groups. She's in charge of the hosts here, so she's got her hands in lots of different things. And then we have Mitch, who is an elder here at Foothills. And I'm going to go ahead and let Mitch say all the things that he does, because the questions that we're going to be answering, he is perfect for these, because he's a dad of 4. He has been involved very actively in a lot of like community stuff with youth. So what are all the, I'm going to botch it if I try to say it. It's a long list.
So by day, I'm a financial advisor. I have my own business doing financial advising. We also do rental property. We have a farm. We raise animals, livestock. Kids show at the fair. I run the kids' soccer league. Sit on the elder board here. I sit on the Rotary board. Serve on 4 scholarship committees.
Wow.
So a lot of different social activities, things in the community to be engaged, involved, to kind of know what's going on in the community, but also in the lives of my family, my kids. Yeah. I think it's important that we all get engaged.
I'm so impressed that you have the time, have made the time. You know, I think a lot of people will say, I don't have the time, but obviously it's not a matter of having it. It's a matter of making the time for it. So.
Yeah, and it is challenging. You know, when you have kids, we have a senior, we have a sophomore, we have a 7th grader, we have a 4th grader.
Wow.
It's busy. Fortunately, one drives and one's almost there. 2 more months.
Not counting down or anything, are you?
He already has passed his driver's test through traffic safety stuff, but has to wait till he turns 16.
Okay, that's exciting.
But so we're getting closer.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for being here, you guys, and I'm excited. So you guys wrote in these questions, and we are pumped to get into them. We've tried to pick all the parenting ones, so... and then we have a little special one at the end. But I'm going to just read you guys the first question and we'll get into it.
Okay.
So first question. I went to public school and so did my wife. So did you, PD, and Katie, I'm not sure. Your kids went through public school and PD and didn't come out as demon-possessed communists. However, it ain't the same landscape these days. I have a kid in country Christian school and one that will be in Loving Hearts 4 next year. Katie, you said you have 3 kids. Has your family decided on public or private school? And PD, would you send your kids through the public school system today? COVID changed so much. Racial and sexual idolatry became prevalent guidelines to instructors, but private school is difficult for an hourly worker like me. What to do? So I'll just address this question since they asked. So I bounce back and forth. Right now, my oldest is at a charter school, and we've had a great experience with it, MRA. But I know a lot of the teachers, and I know the principal, and I feel comfortable with knowing them. But I'm not closed off to homeschooling, and it's been something I've gone back and forth with because every child is so different. So my other 2, my middle kiddo is in LHP right now, which shout out to LHP, amazing preschool if you've been considering it. They're incredible. The teachers, the curriculum, I just can't say enough good things. But so I would love to hear what you guys say, because I have been considering homeschooling, but I know you guys have some really good reasons why you chose public school. So what are your guys' thoughts on this one?
So let me just say, I have our oldest is, she graduated in 2020. She's married and out of the house. Our middle graduated last spring, and our youngest is a junior in high school. And throughout their schooling career, we did different things because different things worked best for their seasons. So I think we've done everything except homeschooling, and that's because I work full-time. So we didn't really that wasn't an option. I think that it depends. I think it depends on the kid. I think it depends on the season and what's needed for the child and what's needed in the season. I don't think there's a black and white, right or wrong answer to that.
Right.
I think we as parents have a responsibility of choosing for our kids based on what's best for them, and if that doesn't work, then reassess and try something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the biggest thing we can do as parents is be engaged in our kids' lives, first off. You have to be engaged. That's why my social activities, if it doesn't revolve really around work first, because I have to go to work, but outside of that, if it doesn't deal with my kids or church, we've tried to cut a lot of that stuff out of our daily routines. Once you kind of get to know your kids, you kind of get to know what do they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We opted with our children to, we started them all in faith-based preschool. We live a little closer to Canby, so we started in Canby. Our youngest actually went through Foothills here, preschool. Loved the experience. But if you start them with a good foundation and let them start making decisions on their own, you start to see who they become, what they need. And our experience was the public school system, yes, it has downfalls. Yes, there's things that we would love to change. But it also offers things that the private school system can't offer. The social learning skills that they get in the public school system, they get exposed to at a young age. That's hard to recreate in a lot of environments. You have a totally different socioeconomic ladder. You have a totally different ethnic background. You know, it's a melting pot. You get people from all walks of life, different political views, different religious views. So kids get to learn what are kids like. They get to learn what are good kids, what are bad kids, what is good behavior, what is bad behavior. That's one thing that we wanted our kids exposed to, so they could learn, because my job as a parent, my belief, you know, my 2 cents here, is to make my children into the most successful human beings they can be when they become adults. And I think the more they understand about how some of that stuff works, interpersonal communication relationships, they will be more successful as they get older versus becoming 18 and all of a sudden hit the real world and like, whoa, not everybody's like this.
Right.
So the cool thing, you know, we opted public school, but watching my children grow, they have found great groups of friends. They went to, they go to a small rural grade school, 91. When they go into Canby High School, they go from a class of about 50 to 400 and something.
Wow.
And they've transitioned very well. At the high school, they have Fellowship of Christian Athletes. My kids belong to that. They love it. I start asking them, hey, who are you hanging out with? What's going on? The kids are telling me about, oh, I think you know their parents. Come to find out, a lot of their parents are friends of ours. We know them through other things. Our kids are finding good kids, and I feel it's just because the foundation we have given them, the public school system, you know, they have the education. If there's things there that we don't feel fit what we think they need, we have to supplement that at home.
And it gives you opportunity to have the conversations, right? Because they don't cease to exist in the real world. You know, so having them at home still as they're encountering these things for the first time, I think is so valuable, because then we as parents get to walk alongside of them as they're learning it, instead of they're learning it once they're out of the house for the first time, right? Then it's harder.
Yeah, and the nice is they do come home with questions. Hey, what does this mean? Hey, what's going on with that? Well, okay, let's talk about it. It creates a lot of opportunities, but first and foremost, every child is different. You have to know what your child needs. And sometimes that is private school, sometimes it is homeschool, sometimes it's an online school. And other times, the public school system, it works really good, but there's just things we have to do as parents to supplement it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. But
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
think no matter where they're at, what choice you've made, whether it's a charter school or homeschool or public school, whatever choice you've made, I think we always have to supplement it.
Yes.
You know, because there's no one choice that's going to be the perfect answer and the perfect fit either.
Yeah.
I think, just continue to follow up and reevaluate every so often. Like, hey, how's it going for you in the public school? Do you like it?
Yeah.
Is it working? You know, sometimes those are just the honest questions we just have to ask our children, because sometimes they know what they need more than what I want them to have.
Yeah.
So.
And I also, I mean, this person, you know, great question, by the way, but if it's been laid on your heart, let's say you and your spouse, God's laying it on your heart to homeschool, there's probably a reason for it. And there's a big uptick in homeschooling right now.
Yeah.
And I think people are doing it really well. But I love what you guys are talking about, that social impact. But there's so many co-op groups that are doing it. You can get your kids in sports outside of that. So if you are homeschooling, those extracurricular activities would be really valuable. But you're right. They're going to come to you with questions. And one thing, a reoccurring advice that I've been getting through all the parenting books, all the Christian parenting books I've read, is you want to be the expert on what they ask. So like if they come asking these hard questions, you can't be awkward about it. And sometimes it's best if you bring it up first, because if they hear it from you first and then they hear it from their friend, let's just use sex stuff as an example. You bring it up, you're not weird about it, you're just educating them age appropriately, and so they know, oh, like, Mom and Dad have already talked to me about this, but my friend is saying this. I'm going to go ask Mom and Dad, versus they hear it first from a friend. So I feel like it's just each kid is so different and needs different things. So it's a hard one because I'm in the middle. I don't know. We've had a good experience with the charter school, but I miss the time. Like, it's such long days. That's one of the things I struggle with, is like, oh, I miss my kids, you know, but I know that it's good for them too at the same time. So not a clear answer on my part, but you guys,
you have to fumble your way through.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So great question. Okay, second question. I remember riding bikes with no helmet, surfing in the open bed of the moving pickup truck, Roman candle fights, and double dog dares. What happened? Do moms see safety as the trap that I do? By the way, if you can tell, I miss the 80s. How do parents balance safety versus liberty? Are fathers shrinking from their duty to expose their children to danger? Would you let your 7-year-old walk up to Toad's for a candy bar if you live close enough to see the gasoline price sign from your front yard? When do we reach the point of looking at mom and saying, hey, you pipe down over there about the safety? I miss seeing kids with casts.
Did Dale write this question?
Right, I know. I was like, Dale's going to be mad he wasn't here for this one. That's a great question.
Okay, so first of all, let me just point out that there are helicopter dads too.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So, but
true.
I kind of agree. I have not been a helicopter parent. Our lessons really sink in deep when we learn them the hard way, you know? I mean, yes, of course we have to be safety conscious. We don't want to risk their lives or whatever, but how do you learn best?
I love to go back to love and logic parenting. Let them fail on small things so they don't fail on big things.
Yeah.
And I think the more you expose your children to at a younger age, you need to be there. You can't just say, hey, here's a saw, go have fun.
Right.
You know, no, this is a saw, this is how it works, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Age appropriately, you get them engaged in stuff. I love the comment, you know, as a mom, but then are the dads, men see things different than women. 100%. My wife, she's more on the safety side. I'm more on, hey, let them try it. You know,
that.
The other day, we're hanging Christmas lights. My 12-year-old, she's up on the second-story roof with me. And she's like, oh, this is so much fun. I'm like, yeah, but you got to be safe. You got to do this. And I'm watching her.
Right.
Mom pulls in the driveway, and she starts waving. Sarah's like, oh.
Yeah. What are you
But
doing?
it's okay. We have to introduce them to things so that they gain the confidence to do other things.
Right.
And so I'm a huge proponent of, yes, let them try things.
Yeah.
Yes, they get more injured when they're with me than they do with mom. I will fully accept that. But I'm right there.
Yeah.
I'm guiding them. I'm teaching them. And, you know, my kids started mowing the yard at 7 to 10 years old on the riding mower. They do a better job than I do now.
Love that.
But they've gained the confidence to do it. Different things I think as a parent, you got to be engaged, you got to be involved, you got to be there with your children to show them.
Right,
We're seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
You bring up a great point, too, about moms kind of letting dads have that, because I do feel like in our culture, we do have a lot of, like, dominating moms. I might get in trouble for saying that, but it's the truth.
Yep.
You have to let dads be dads. And my husband, if he is listening, he's going to be like, listen to yourself. Feel free to play that part. Yeah. Here's the tape. Yeah. But so I definitely, you talking, I'm like, oh, I gotta let Jared do more because that's how they learn. You're absolutely right. And I love the piece about the confidence. You don't get confident from, never trying something.
Yeah. And there are some valuable lessons too in failing and having it not kill you.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then I think we have so much fear of failure. But failure can oftentimes we can learn the most from that, and it doesn't mean necessarily that it's a full failure. It's just, okay, what did we learn from this? How can we do things a little bit different to have a different outcome next time? It's I think it holds a lot of people back, just that fear of failure.
Absolutely.
So
yes, you know what? This person also touched on some more specific things as far as letting your child walk to a certain place. I think we've been inundated heavily with too much information, because back in the 80s, you probably didn't hear about all these children being sex trafficked, or it just wasn't on our radar. So I as a parent, I can feel the I'll lock because you can lock our car and leave it running. Sometimes I'll lock it, run in and get pizza, leave the kids in the car seat, and I'll be able to watch them from the window. But I know some moms are like, that's too much, So every parent has a different thing in their mind. But I don't know the correct answer on that one specifically, the more letting them do more physical things. But I'd say the older they get, you have to let go at some point.
I think you hit on a good point, though. Yes, things aren't the same as they were in the 80s.
Yeah.
When we grew up, my parents, they gave me full reign to explore. I was driving a vehicle by the time I was 10 years old by myself.
Wow.
Probably shouldn't do that today. Probably shouldn't have done it back then. But I survived. If you look at statistics, population data, we have almost 1.5 million more people now in Oregon. So we're at 4.2 million. We were about 2.6 million back then.
It's a big jump.
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
That means almost one extra person for every two that were here when we grew up.
Yeah.
That's a lot more people. Roads are more crowded. Sidewalks are more crowded. I remember when Malawa's population was 1,500 people. We're over 10,000. So yeah, some of those concerns, do I let my kid walk to the store?
Yeah.
Those are valid.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't. I'd walk with them several times before I ever, but you know what, 7, 10 years old, probably not.
Yeah.
But driving the truck
as
in
they
the
get
pasture,
older,
absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I try to make it a point to take them to the store and say, hey, you ring up the groceries.
Yeah, we
you do
too.
this. Give them opportunities to do stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's the same world as it was in the 80s. We knew, as a community, we knew all our neighbors. We knew who was driving down the road. There's so many more people here that, those are valid concerns. And I wouldn't just turn my kid loose. Hey, you go down Safeway and have fun. It's a different world today. But as a parent, as long as you're engaged, you're teaching them, you're going through the things, I think they're gaining the confidence. Let them go out and try stuff.
Yeah, I love that. If there's one thing I'm picking up from this episode, it is looking for the opportunities for them to build their independence and their confidence. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, well, hopefully, I don't know if we specifically answered it, but okay, last question, or the third question, excuse me. Okay, this person says, wow, whoever said that violence never solved any problems clearly never read the Old Testament. I got bullied as a kid,
true.
Didn't you? So I went to my dad, and he had a perspective he gave me that no other dad has ever used, but almost all agree with. He simply asked me if the bullies had any good points. He explained that children are immature, crude, and mean. They're also helpful, and they genuinely care about each other, but have a small toolbox with which to draw from when it comes to advice or correction of behaviors out of the norm. So they bully. This led to an honest time of real self-reflection. They called me Four Eyes. I got contacts. They said I was scrawny. I lifted weights. They said I had kinky Jew hair. I got a buzz cut. Until the time came, they were out of constructive bullying, and we were left with a meanie trying to feel better about himself. Well, by that time, all that bullying had raised my self-esteem enough that socking this jerk up didn't seem so impossible, so I did. How do we find balance with our children when it comes to how they work out their own social issues? Great question. I love the backstory.
So, Our philosophy as parents with our kids, we told them, you may never start a fight, but by all means finish it. You will never be in trouble for protecting yourself or protecting someone else. From us, you will never be in trouble. And I think that the pendulum has swung so far the other direction that they're penalized for protecting themselves or other people, and we aren't okay with that. So yes, of course, we want to try to seek to understand. Yes, of course, we want to know that other people are having other struggles, and the compassion needs to be there. But if somebody is trying to harm you, you have full permission and an expectation to defend yourself. So that may not be the PC response, but it's the honest one.
Did you, now with bullying, and I want to also point out, there's a difference between the boys and the girls.
Yep.
Because girls tend to be like more behind the scenes, a little more catty. Boys are a little bit more, at least, typically, not always, a little more straightforward and then work it out.
Vocal,
this guy was able to knock out his bully or whatever, and it probably finished. Girls are a little more cruel. Have you had experience with like the boy versus girl?
We have.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had both. Our oldest in middle school went through a season where she was bullied. And it was pretty awful. One of the challenges that we experienced that was different than when we were growing up, I experienced bullying growing up. Did you?
Yep.
Yeah. It was part of the gig, right? But for our kids, their generation, bullying because of electronics and phones can follow them home. When I was a kid, yeah, you're gonna encounter unpleasantness when you're at school, but then when you go home, then you have a break from that.
Right.
Whereas
So
for
different.
our kids with the electronics, that's not the case. And that wasn't the case for our oldest. And so we ended up taking her phone away, not as a discipline, but as a protection. And she was thankful for it. Because then she could have a break when she got home. So yes, there are different kinds of bullying. It's not all someone throwing a punch, right? And we had to advocate for her. I had conversations with the principal and the teachers, and and it was a gradual thing. It was, we gave her strategies, that we agreed on in our home that she was supposed to try to utilize. And
Can you share a couple of those? What were the strategies?
Yeah, asking questions of the ones that are bullying, seeking to understand. Our oldest has a strong personality, so
Don't they all?
Yeah, I was gonna say
The
that
oldest?
sounds
Yeah.
like a pattern.
yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So we wanted her to seek to understand. Maybe there were some pieces in there that she, needed to know. Ignoring, talking to a teacher, talking to the principal, all of the I would say typical things.
Yeah.
And they didn't work. And so, you move on up the ladder.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. Growing up today is totally different than when we grew up.
Yeah.
Cell phones didn't exist.
Right.
Cameras, everything you did was not recorded. You
Yeah.
could be a kid, you could have fun, you could be dumb, you could be silly,
Yeah.
and it didn't follow you the rest of your life.
Right.
Um,
Sad.
I'm sad for children today that they have to grow up with that. Cyberbullying is something that I didn't experience, so I can't relate to my kids of how that is from their view because I didn't experience it. But yes, it exists. You try to equip your kids. Like Dale said the other day, you can defend yourself. Yes. Revenge, another topic.
Right.
That's different.
Yeah, that is different.
God has, he handles all that. You, yes, you defend yourself if you're in a situation that's harmful. And defense doesn't always mean socking someone. It sometimes means taking yourself from a situation and leaving. And I think you got to equip your kids with the right tool bag of how to handle the situations.
And they're so varied.
Yeah, and our kids have experienced it. I did. But I think the more you equip your kids with the ways to handle it, like you talked about, talk to the teacher first, talk to authority. Okay, if that doesn't work, say, hey, that's not true, and just walk away, ignore. Don't engage that leads to, hey, I got their attention, I'm going to go deeper now.
Right.
So there's things, it doesn't always work, yes. That's the hard part. But I do think that yes, they can defend themselves, but also having a core group of friends, build people up. All of a sudden, sometimes you're known as the person that's building people up. Now you have people that will defend you when others say something. There's just many different things that they can do, but I think it's our job as parents to help them through that. Part of that is just being engaged in your kids' life, trying to figure out what's going on. Sometimes they'll tell us, sometimes they won't. That's the hard part about parenting. It's a science experiment. We try something and see if it works. If it doesn't, we try something else. Sometimes it doesn't work. You've got to just keep going back to the drawing board to see what your kid needs, how can you help them, and you give them the tools and let them go handle it. To a level. There's certain times where a parent has to intervene, and I totally get that. But the more you can help them gain the confidence to defend themselves, to know how to handle those situations, I think that's our job, is we're there to try to guide them as best as we can.
Absolutely.
Through these challenging times.
Yeah, that's great perspective. And if there is a parent listening that is walking through a child being bullied, I will say because you guys asked, I think all of us have gotten bullied at some point. Yep. Mine was just my 4th grade year, and it was a pretty rough year. I would eat lunch by myself in the bathroom. But honestly, I'm so glad I went through that, because before that experience, I was probably never paying attention to other people's feelings, very much in my own world. It really, as painful as it was, I think that it catapulted me to become such a much more kind and caring person. Yeah. Because from then on, I was like, okay, if I make other people feel valuable, like exactly what you're talking about, it was just such a great lesson that I had to walk through, and I wouldn't be the same without it. So just know that hopefully that's how your kid will.
Well, and let me just say too, for Lydia, our oldest that experienced bullying in middle school, she one of the positive outcomes of her going through that, she felt led to, so she volunteered with FSM, Foothills Student Ministries, from the time she was young and whatever. And she felt that the Lord had asked her to share her bullying experiences with the junior high youth group. And she asked the youth pastor at the time if she could talk to the students. And so she did. And, the rapport that she was able to build, and the wisdom that she gained, and how the Lord showed up for her in her story, she got to share that with the junior high kids. Yeah. And so that is a big deal. Yeah. And like you, her heart of compassion grew for others. Yeah. Through the experience. Not sure she'd want to go through it again.
Right.
But.
Lots of valuable lessons through pain of all sorts of kinds.
And I think, for me, I was a very small child. I entered high school at 4'8", 89 pounds. My 4th grader is bigger than I was as a freshman in high school. There was an older kid at grade school, always picked on me, whatnot. We're good friends now. You have to be open-minded, and you have to forgive, and you have to say, okay, what was going on in that kid's life that caused this anger, this whatever, this desire to pick on other people? Yeah. Sometimes you just have to open your eyes, see the big picture. It's hard to when you're getting picked on, but sometimes you give them the benefit of the doubt, and then they actually get to know you, you get to know them, and you can be friends. Oh, yeah. So it does happen, not always, but...
love that. Story of hope.
Yeah.
Bully turned bestie.
That's the big thing is, you got to go through it with forgiveness, and you got to understand there's probably something going on in that kid's life, too, that's causing this. Maybe his home life's not as good as mine. Maybe he's struggling because something happened. It's hard because you can't get inside the mind of the other child to understand what's driving this. Yeah. And so,
and this isn't necessarily bullying, but my oldest is having issues with a classmate. And as parents, we're very quick to almost be like, oh, like my child this, But I think especially as followers of Jesus and trying to like pass things on to your kids, it's so important for your kids to try to understand other kids' perspectives. Because that, you know, a lot of those young ages, that's the last thing on there. But I was asking her, I'm like, okay, well, if you said that, like, how do you think that maybe that might have made her feel this way? Or, so I think like it's so important, even just not with our kids, just with other people, to try to believe the best in others and give the benefit of the doubt, like what you're talking about.
And that's so countercultural.
It is. It truly is. But I did, since PD's not here, I tried to put in a couple references specifically to this person's question and about defending yourself, because they asked that. And Exodus 22, verse 2 through 3 does say that it's acceptable to defend your home from a thief, and that you're not guilty of bloodshed if you kill a thief who breaks in at the night. So anyways, I think there's a couple other ones too, even verses about Christians called to value the image of God in others and may need to intervene to protect the weak and vulnerable. And Jesus never explicitly taught that it was wrong, but obviously, yes, when it comes to retribution, or there's specific verses that are countercultural to that. But I do think a lot of times Christians sometimes feel like we have to be doormats, which is not the case. But there's the godly way to go about it. So, yeah. So anyways, but I loved having you guys for these questions. Thank you so much for making the time. And then I do have a very serious last question. If you still have time, or you need, I know you're a busy man. So okay, last question, super serious. Okay, so this person says, I love dogs. So do most Americans. But when does the value of an animal life reach idolatry? Isn't there a clear delineation in the Bible between human life and the life of an animal? What is our duty as Christians to be caretakers of the animal world? I just have a follow-up question to put us all on the spot about my question on the value of animal life. If your family dog is drowning in a river and a person you've never met is drowning too, which one do you jump in the water to save?
I'm sorry. Dogs can swim, right? I mean, last time I checked.
Maybe this one can't.
Yeah.
Maybe this one only has 3 legs. You don't know.
Yeah.
I raise livestock.
Value.
I love animals.
Me
I've been
too.
around animals my whole life, but I'm more compassionate to humans than I am livestock.
You gotta save the
And
people.
Animals and pets, I go after the person.
What?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Fido can swim to shore. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I just hope that if I'm ever in a sinking boat and with a stranger,
You want to be in the boat with us.
I hope that they take pity on me over their family dog. But I love my dog too. But and you know what though? I have noticed that, especially maybe it's an Oregon thing too. Like pets are considered very like, you know, I don't know, idolatry maybe, because that person specifically asked about that. But yeah. I don't.
I mean, I think we're called to care for animals, right?
For sure.
But not at the expense of human life.
Yes.
I think that's where the...
Beautifully said. I was searching for that. I'm like,
right
God,
there with you.
Yeah. He has to love animals. He gave them to us.
They're a
to take
responsibility to care
and,
for.
You know, and treat humanely, but they are not humans, and they're not made in God's image. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for, our mantra, we always say no dumb questions, so I appreciate all of the questions. That's what makes it fun. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Thank you, Mitch and Kaylin, for coming in and hanging out with me, so I wasn't solo in here. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.